Imagine the sound of anticipation. It's not a roar, not yet. It's the sound of 10,000 people holding their breath. For weeks, the arena had felt empty, a void left by its fallen champion. Rumors had swirled, whispers of a return, but they were just that, whispers. Hope is a dangerous thing in this world. And then, the lights went black. A collective gasp. The silence was absolute. A perfect vacuum. One single, unmistakable musical note hit the speakers, and the vacuum shattered. The explosion of noise was physical. It was a wave of sound that shook the cameras. Phones shot up. A sea of digital lights trying to capture a moment they couldn't believe was real. She appeared. A silhouette at first, backlit by the white-hot entrance lights. The crowd wasn't just cheering. They were screaming, tears in their eyes. They were welcoming back a hero they thought they had lost for good. She walked down the ramp, not with the dominant swagger of Mommy, but with the visible emotion of Rhea Ripley, the person. She was home. She touched the hands of the fans, a genuine smile on her face. She had missed this energy, this family. She climbed into the ring, the center of her universe, and grabbed a microphone. The welcome back chants were deafening. She was about to speak, to thank them, to finally close that painful chapter of her injury. But she never got the chance. A new theme song cut through the celebration. The crowd turned, confused but curious. It was Liv Morgan. A wave of applause rippled through the arena. Of course. Her friend. The person who had been by her side, the one who had also suffered. It made sense. She was coming out to welcome Rhea back properly, to share this moment. Liv walked to the ring, a wide, almost tearful smile on her face. She looked overcome with emotion. She climbed through the ropes, and the two women stood in the center of the ring, the crowd cheering for this beautiful reunion. They embraced, a long, tight hug. The kind of hug that says, "I'm so glad you're okay." The kind of hug that speaks of shared history and real friendship. Rhea patted her on the back, starting to pull away, but Liv held on. Just a second too long, and then, boom. The smile vanished from Liv's face, replaced by a cold, empty void. She shoved Rhea back, and then, with a sickening crack, unleashed a brutal, targeted assault. The microphone hit the mat with a thud. The crowd went silent, not a gradual fade, but a sudden, shocked muting. They were witnessing a reunion, but it wasn't the one they expected. This wasn't a performance. This was an execution. Liv Morgan, her face a mask of chilling calm, had just declared war on her best friend. This wasn't just revenge. This was a message. There is no sound in wrestling like the sound of genuine shock. It's not the boo of a villain. It's not the oh of a near fall. It is the sound of 10,000 minds trying to process something that doesn't belong. The arena became a cathedral of silence. You could hear a single person in the 14th row yell, "Why?" and it echoed. The commentators, usually the voices guiding the narrative, were speechless. Their microphones picked up only the sound of their own breathing. I don't understand," one of them finally stammered. "What have we just seen?" The camera zoomed in on Rhea, who was curled on the mat, not selling an injury, but displaying the stunned, blank look of someone who has been betrayed by family. The camera panned to the crowd. A young fan in the front row, wearing a Mammy's Always on Top shirt, had his phone still recording, but he wasn't looking at it. He was just staring, mouth agape, his illusion shattered. This wasn't part of the show. The joy of the return, the pure, unfiltered happiness of just moments before, had been curdled. It felt personal. It felt like they had been betrayed too. Liv hadn't just attacked Rhea. She had attacked the very idea of a happy ending. She had stolen their moment of catharsis and replaced it with a cold, uncomfortable reality. Liv Morgan didn't flee. She didn't celebrate. She stood over Rhea's body, her chest rising and falling, the only person in the building who seemed to be breathing normally. She looked down, not with anger, but with something far more terrifying. Finality. She had done what she came to do. Slowly, deliberately, she backed away. She exited the ring, never turning her back on her victim. The referees and officials finally swarmed the ring, their panic real. They signaled for medical help, their arms making the X that everyone knows is not a prop. This escalated the tension from drama to emergency. The show itself seemed to stop, the gears grinding to a halt. Liv backed up the ramp, her eyes scanning the stunned faces in the crowd. She wasn't looking for approval or hatred. She was just looking. She was observing the silence she had created. It was her masterpiece. As she reached the top of the ramp, she gave one last look back to the ring where her friend was being tended to. She didn't smile. She didn't scowl. She just was. Then she turned and vanished behind the curtain. The broadcast abruptly cut to a commercial, a jarring shift back to a normal world. But everyone watching knew that the world they had just been in was now broken, and the rules no longer applied. The moment Liv Morgan disappeared backstage, the atmosphere was electric. But it wasn't the electricity of a great performance. It was the tension of a live wire whipping around on the floor. Wrestlers, producers, and crew who had been watching on the monitors in the gorilla position were frozen. Someone muttered, "Did she go into business for herself? Was that real?" The line was so blurred, no one knew. This wasn't the usual "good match, man. Congratulations." This was different. Whispers started immediately. Some were furious. They saw a cheap shot, a disrespectful act that broke the unspoken code of the locker room, especially on someone's first night back from a serious injury. Others, however, were quiet. A different kind of quiet. A quiet of impressed calculation. They saw someone who had just stolen the entire show. She hadn't just made a moment. She became the moment. The locker room was instantly divided. You were either on the side of tradition and friendship, disgusted by the betrayal, or you were on the side of ambition, awestruck by the sheer, cold-blooded nerve it took to do what she just did. Every single person in that locker room, friend or foe, immediately reevaluated their relationship with Liv Morgan. She was no longer just one of the girls. She was a threat. She was a shark that had just tasted blood. Before the show had even returned from its emergency commercial break, the internet was on fire. It wasn't just wrestling news sites, it was trending everywhere. The clip was dissected, frame by frame, by millions. The hug, the way Liv's grip tightened, the blankness in her eyes before the attack. And then, the old pictures started to surface. The algorithm, in its infinite cruel wisdom, began suggesting old best friends compilation videos. Clips of Rhea and Liv laughing in a car. Clips of them traveling together in an airport, goofing off. Clips of them defending each other in past interviews. This context made the betrayal 1,000 times worse. This wasn't a storyline convenience. This was the public execution of a real-world friendship. The narrative was set in stone within minutes. The ultimate betrayal. Fans who had loved Liv's revenge tour were now conflicted. They wanted her to get what she deserved, but not like this. This felt too cruel. The line between rooting for a character and witnessing a personal tragedy had been completely erased. Liv Morgan hadn't just made waves. She had created a tsunami, and the entire digital world was being reshaped by it. She was now the most hated and most compelling person in the sport. We are used to seeing Rhea Ripley as Mami, an unstoppable, infallible force of nature. She is the armor. But in the quiet of the trainer's room, long after the crowds had gone home, the armor was gone. There was just Rhea. The physical pain from the attack was nothing compared to the cold, hollow feeling of humiliation. The doctors checked her for a concussion, but the real injury was one they couldn't see. She was quiet, answering questions with single words. The one person she thought she could trust in that ring, the one person who knew her history, had used it against her. She had been vulnerable, her heart open to the crowd's love, and that vulnerability had been exploited. Imagine that phone call, the one she has to make to her family in Australia. Are you okay? We saw what happened. How do you even begin to explain it? Yeah, I'm fine. It was just Liv. The name hangs in the air. It was Liv. The betrayal doesn't just sting, it poisons. It makes you question every other friendship. It makes you paranoid. Who else is just smiling, waiting for the right moment to strike? The mommy persona was built to protect her, but in that moment, Rhea Ripley was completely and publicly exposed. The monster had been made to feel human. Liv Morgan didn't go to the locker room. She didn't talk to producers. She went straight to her car, sat in the driver's seat in the dark, and let the engine stay cold. The adrenaline was fading, and the silence was just as loud here as it was in the arena. She replayed the moment in her head, the sound of the crowd's joy for Rhea, the hug, the feel of her friend's shoulder blades under her hands. That hug was real. That's why it had to be done. She had to kill that part of herself, the part that could still feel that friendship. She had to prove that her revenge tour wasn't a gimmick. It wasn't a slogan on a t-shirt. It was a promise. She had sat at home, injured, watching Rhea become a global superstar. She had watched her friend take the spot she believed was hers. This wasn't impulse. This was calculated. This was the sacrifice she had to make. To get to the top, you can't have friends. You can only have targets. As she sat there, her phone buzzed. A text from a producer, then a call from a fellow wrestler. Then, she saw the name on the screen. Rhea. It was ringing. She stared at it, her heart pounding. This was the moment of truth. She let it ring once, twice. Then she pressed decline. The bridge was burned. There was no going back. The following week, the air was thick. The ring was empty. No one knew what to expect. Rhea's music hit, but it was different, slower, more somber, the aggression stripped away and replaced with a cold, simmering focus. She walked to the ring, not as Mammy, but as the woman who had been betrayed. She wore no makeup, no persona, just black gear. She held the microphone, and the crowd was dead silent, hanging on her every word. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just spoke, her voice dangerously calm. I wasn't mad, Liv. I was just sad. You were my friend. You were my family. But then I realized, she continued, you didn't just attack me. You attacked our past. You attacked every trip we ever took, every laugh we ever shared. You used our friendship as a weapon. She paused. You didn't do it because you hate me. You did it because you want to be me. And right on cue, Liv Morgan appeared on the giant screen, not from backstage, but from a luxury skybox. She was dressed in a lavish outfit, sipping champagne, a smirk on her face. She didn't say a word. She just held up her glass in a toast. The psychological war had begun. This was no longer about a championship. This was about identity. This was about annihilation. We thought we were watching a story about a hero's return. Then, we thought we were watching a story about revenge. We believed Liv Morgan attacked Rhea Ripley to get even for her own past injuries, to settle a score, to get a shot at the title. We thought we understood the motive. But we were wrong. This was never about revenge. Revenge is an ending. This was a beginning. When we look back at the footage, we see the real twist. When Liv stood over Rhea, her expression wasn't hatred. It was blank. It was the look of a caterpillar shedding its skin. The hug wasn't just a betrayal. It was a transfer. Liv wasn't there to destroy Rhea. She was there to absorb her. She needed to be in the ring with that pure, celebratory energy, to take it for herself, and then discard the source. She destroyed her oldest friend not to get back at her, but to replace her. She wanted Rhea's spot, her aura, her connection with the crowd. She had to prove that she was the one willing to sacrifice what Rhea wouldn't, their friendship. The crowd came expecting to see their hero, Mommy, return. But in that one brutal moment, they witnessed something far more significant. They saw the death of Liv Morgan and the birth of a monster who just took her place.